The recording has started.
That's a lot of Jango.
Let's do this.
Many Bothans lost their lives, it's true, to bring the news across the galactic view. From the outer rim to the core sphere's light. Tune in this week and hold on tight.
Welcome to episode 6 of Across the Network with a special guest, the BIATL 6K winner Filip Samuelsson from Maclunky Gaming. We'll discuss Ian's hot take on competitive formats, the Milan Jango results, and a bit of a sensitive topic around angle shooting optional triggers as seen on camera in the Milan Top Cut. We close with our main segment with Filip from Maclunky Gaming and his incredible journey to the 3v3 Grand Finals and his ultimate victory in the 6K. Enjoy the show. Okay, welcome back to Across the Network. I'm Jonathan Fisher. I'm here with Lego Pizza.
What up, everyone? Post BIATL hype, and we got the champion of the 6K main event and runner-up in the 3v3, Filip from Maclunky Gaming. Filip, how are you today?
Well, thanks for having me. I feel great. I won yesterday, so today I'm feeling ecstatic.
Yeah, it just
Yeah,
happened.
I would imagine.
Yeah. Welcome. I'm so glad you could join us. I'm really excited for this. I'm actually really thankful that you're making the time to come hang out, talk with us. I'm really excited for our listeners to, get to hear some of your thoughts and your experience here. So maybe like a little bit of introduction so people can get to know you a little bit. Like, how did you get into Star Wars? Tell us a little bit about yourself if you don't mind.
Okay, so when I was young, I played other trading card games. The way I got into Star Wars was a couple of my buddies went to the pre-release and they were like, they bought a box and they were like, Filip, you like trading card games. How about you come and we play Sealed? I was like, I don't know, man. Trading card games? Maybe that's just behind me. And they were like, come on, it's just a Sealed. And I was like, okay, whatever, I'll play a Sealed. So we go there, play the Sealed. I'm like, I guess this game is okay. So a couple of weeks later, my buddy is like, we're going to this local. You want to join? I'm like, it's just a local. I don't have a deck, but if I can borrow a deck from you, sure, I'll join. And then, little by little, I got hooked.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're very willing to give into peer pressure, Filip.
Yeah, maybe a little too willing.
Well, they gave him a deck and everything. They
made it super easy for him.
You know what else it sounds like? His friends really wanted to spend time with him. That's what I think it sounds like.
That's how I felt. You call it peer pressure. I felt loved.
Exactly. So, for me, I fell in love with the everyone taking a single action. Was there anything about the game that appealed to you, that drew you in?
I think I liked the back and forth at first. It's very different from any other card game I've ever played. So I was like, yeah, that. So that sort of appealed to me. I think what appeals to me now is all the. If you guys know the term, maybe mental magic that you can play with Star Wars. Like, you just sort of, because I feel like so many decks are so consistent, you can just sort of play the first couple of rounds like it was a chess game. Like, you can sort of run through all the opportunities. And I really like that aspect. It means if you come out well prepared, you can really get an edge on your opponents.
Yeah, kind of just like how in chess you can memorize openings and, counterplays to openings and things like that. Like, oh, what do I do if my opponent starts Crafty Smuggler while I'm playing Han, right? Like, and they have Tarkin Town. Do I want to play a 3-5 or do I want to play Bodhi? Things like that. Super knowing when to do those type of plays and what's the more optimal line is that's really how you get an edge, especially in the early games, because sometimes that snowballs into a victory really fast.
Yeah, and mostly what I really liked is I can sort of determine these things. Like, in some other card games I've played, I felt like, well, I can make a guess, but was play A or play B really better? I don't know. Where in Star Wars, I feel like I have a really good gut feeling of, in this situation, am I winning or am I not winning? And then take it from there.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I think, weren't you also a Hearthstone pro at one point?
I did play Hearthstone professionally for around 1 year. I played at BlizzCon 2014. I believe I got the ninth for $5,000. So
Nice.
Oh, Bubble Boy, just out of the top 8.
yeah, I mean we were only 16 at BlizzCon, so I mean. It was,
Okay, so like getting to the
getting to
16 was, like,
BlizzCon
that was the real feature, Matt. Like that was the feature itself.
So that was another event, DreamHack Stockholm, where so first we played a huge Swiss tournament. I mean, it wasn't that huge. First, it was a qualifier point system, and then we played a 128-man Swiss tournament, and I made it to top 8, and then we played, well, maybe top 16, and then we played it. They had like an uneven cut system, and then we played offline at DreamHack Stockholm, and I won my pool, which means I made it to BlizzCon.
Wow, that's awesome.
That is awesome. I've never been to BlizzCon, but I've been playing Blizzard games long time. That sounds pretty great. Just to go like that.
Yeah. I mean, I got to play in this big stage in front of like, 100,000 people watching online, and maybe 2,000-3,000 people watching live. So
I need to dig back and watch Filip from 10 years ago playing live at BlizzCon.
2014, did we say? 2014?
Yeah, you can look it up on YouTube. Some of my teammates looked it up on YouTube after I told them, so I know it's out there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Ian, you have a hot take for us today?
I do. Okay, so I don't know if this is actually a hot take, because I think a lot of people are going to agree with me, but after having such a successful weekend doing the 3v3, which was by far the highlight of BIATL, I mean, every single person I talked to that played in it was like, when are we doing the next one?
Yeah.
And I think the viewers also loved it. It's really fun to root for a team, especially like if there's multiple people on there that you think are really cool or really innovative, and you get to see all of them play together and get rewarded for like their high level of play and deck building. I think that FFG needs to introduce more formats for competitive play. I know that we're super young as a game. We've only been out for a year.
Yeah.
But it's so much fun. And maybe not necessarily 3v3. Maybe that could be like down the line when there's more of an established game. But maybe just like introduce like draft or limited sectors, where the whole format is just like day 1 is sealed, day 2 is draft, and the top 8 is a draft to win it all. Stuff like that I think could really help improve the game in the competitive sense. It gives people a break from the premier meta. So like right now we have a menace running around the format, and it would actually be kind of cool if we had like a sector that was draft or limited, where you didn't have to worry about the boogeyman of the format, or if you just weren't really interested in playing that format, you could play another one and still play at the highly competitive level. I'm sure that this will happen eventually, but I don't know. I feel like they could start next set, if the next sector, have a draft sector, have a limited sector or something, and try it out. Even if it's a failure at the end of the day, I think trying that kind of stuff out and seeing how the community reacts to it is a good thing. That's pretty much what we did with the 3v3, and I don't know. I think it was an overwhelming success from our end. So, what do you guys think?
I think that sounds great. Maybe actually this past weekend I saw some of my buddies play the 3-pack Twin Suns format. So you buy 3 packs, you open them, and then you choose 2 of the leaders, and that's your Twin Suns deck. And I thought that was like an amazing format that I hadn't seen anyone else do, and it looked a lot of fun.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. That's a fun thing to do, like between rounds and stuff too.
Did they build their deck? What cards did they use to build their deck?
You buy 3 packs, you open them, you pick your 2 leaders, and whatever base you want, and all the other cards goes into your deck. And that's your deck. That's your Twin Suns deck.
So you're gonna get a bunch of like off aspect cards.
So there's no aspect penalties.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, I think for me, the limited Grand Prix and Magic, those are always my favorite. The big limited events, so much fun. The 3v3 is great. I never got to do a 3v3 in any other game, honestly. This was my first time, and it's just preparing for it and sitting down with your buddies and playing was just awesome. I think people watching it really enjoyed watching teams of players battle.
Yeah.
And watching it live was also really cool, seeing the teams kind of huddle around each other to try and win that last match. That was always exciting.
Yeah, it was super cool. I'm excited for the next time we do another one of those, but yeah, I don't know. Just add more formats. It's fun. Like when we have metas like this where, sometimes people are so dejected, they don't want to play the best deck. Everybody else is playing the best deck. Well, solve it by having another format. Maybe you don't need the emergency ban something, right? Because you just have like the next big tournament be something that doesn't require you to have the bad format or whatever it is. So.
I guess I don't really see this happening. I was surprised. FFG said that they claimed that they were designing this game to be played for limited, and then they said all competitive. None of the competitive play would be limited, and I was
they
like,
said
what?
For the first year.
Oh, did they? Okay.
They said for the first year. So
all right.
I have a sneaking suspicion that after Galactics they might announce like a sector that's draft or limited. I mean, I'm always an optimist, so I will always hope that they do something like that because I think that'd be really fun. But I know that specifically for this set 4, Jump to Lightspeed, that they added designers that were specifically helping make the draft format better. And if anybody has drafted this set, it shows. Like, it is a really fun set to draft. To me, it's the best set to draft. Like, the pilots are a super fun mechanic to play in draft. There's less blowouts. Like, you don't have bamboozle or people just main decking upgrade hate, whatever. I mean, you can, because there are some commons that are upgrade hate, but you can usually like play around it, whatever. I mean, it's just been a blast for me. So
I thought it was great. Yeah. So this last weekend, 2 big events. We had Milan, over 500 people, and we had BIATL. Let's talk about Milan first, and then spend the rest of our time talking about BIATL and Jango. So I'm sure you guys saw the results in Milan. What are your thoughts? What are your initial thoughts about that?
I want to hear what Phil has to say first, and then
well,
right.
That's a lot of Jango. I would say, in my mind, it's not an issue if 25% of the field brings Jango. It's an issue if the conversion rate is also like through the chart. But just because a lot of people play a deck, it's not really. I actually see that as an advantage. It means it's way easier to prepare. And in my experience, in formats where there's like one deck that a majority of the people bring, it actually becomes a little bit easier for the really good players to take advantage because they know that they're gonna play, a lot of rounds against Jango. So if they bring a strategy where they can beat Jango every single time and they're not like lost against other people, I mean, you have to find such a strategy, such a deck usually, then then all the good players will always rise to the top, right? I think where Milan got a little sketchy is when we saw the top cut. It just looks like, damn, like Jango just swept everything.
I mean, it goes
pretty deep.
7
too,
of the
right?
top 8, 7 of the top 8, 11 of the top 12. I think it was like a 45% conversion rate to day 2. And then, like, the top 32 was just littered with it. I don't know the exact numbers. I'm sure we'll put a graphic up to show everyone. But, yeah, this is what I've been saying on the podcast for the last 3 weeks, is that Jango is a menace. It will be dominant. You need to prepare for it, or you need to play it and then prepare for the mirror. And it looks like the Europeans were in agreement, which, I mean, typically, Europe is more of a control meta compared to the United States, and it's interesting because I feel like almost the opposite happened at BIATL, where we had a lot more control decks trying to fight against the Jangos, or even other mid-range decks like CAD have a really high prevalence. trying to fight against the Jango menace, where in Milan, I think the second most represented deck was Quinlan, and the Quinlan Jango matchup did not feel, I think the percentages for Quinlan were under 50% by a decent margin against Jango. So when that kind of stuff happens, it's it's not unusual for the end result to be that the 26% deck is 45% of day 2 or whatever the number was. So
yeah,
I don't know.
It was 11 in the top 12. I just checked.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this was actually more than what I expected, to be honest. Like, I didn't think it was going to be this successful, which just shows like how crazy this deck is.
Yeah, I have some thoughts. Okay, so Boba was a problem too, right? Like, we ended up banning Boba Leader.
Yes,
the
set one Boba.
European tournaments, early European tournaments were like all Boba in the top 8s, if you remember. And now they're all Jango. So they're a little almost like our canary, right? Like, hey, Europe has all top 8s of this deck. That might be a problem. But I think I have some other thoughts, and I want to hear what you guys think about this. I think that the people showing up to BIATL were a few cycles ahead of a lot of the people showing up at Milan. And I think the best players that showed up in Milan, there's plenty of amazing players in Europe. We know this. The best players did very well at that tournament, but it was also 500 people. There weren't 500 very well prepared players. There weren't 500 people that were like, I know what I'm doing. I know how Jango works. I'm ready for this. In BIATL, we had 100 people per pool, 100 plus. There also weren't 100 people there that knew what they were doing, but there was maybe 50, maybe 60. Like the percentage of that group that like really came prepared, after just a couple rounds, you're only facing people that really showed up ready for this new meta. So
and
I
also,
think, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to touch on that, Jonathan. At BIATL, we had 4 events technically across 3 days, where you could change your deck list to kind of adapt, right?
Yep.
Like, I know the 3v3 was specific to, you might be playing a deck specifically because you thought your team needed some sort of archetype on it. But even just card choices in the 3v3 were, like, we saw those deck lists. We saw people playing certain cards. People then played the pool 1 later in the day, and they had their own deck list for that. And then after those 4 rounds, there was another 3 rounds the next day, and then pool 2 started. And even in pool 2, people could change their decks before they went ahead and locked it in. So you could see, like, okay, well, what was the meta like for pool 1? Like, oh, maybe I went X2 and I really wish I had this one card in my deck, and now I have a chance to change it, optimize my deck, and go to the next one and try to fight back. So there is a little bit there with being able to kind of on the fly change to the meta that you're seeing before yourself. But even with those 2 pools, I don't think we had 26% Jango in either of the hundreds, but maybe we did. I just don't know.
So there's a phase 2 to my thoughts, but Philip, what do you think about what we're talking about so far?
Yeah, so I would also just say that this is the first week of major tournaments, both Milan and BIATL. So no one really knew what the meta would be like. No one, we were talking, okay, we all know Jango is good, but is it gonna be 20%, 25, 50? We don't know, right? Yes, also I think I can say this without spoiling anything. We expected a lot more Han Yellow. I was playing Han Yellow, and there was not many Han Yellow players, and I expected that there would have been a lot more Han Yellow players. I was surprised surprised Ian wasn't playing Han Yellow.
Dude, I just got so dejected trying to make it work against Jango. I mean, it's great to see that you had amazing success with it, but in testing, I just was getting the crap beat out of me. And I just decided if I can't beat him, join him, so.
Fair enough. I like that sentiment.
So, yeah. So then the other thing, just to finish my thought, I think that this deck changes the way you have to play the game in a way that other leaders have not. Other leaders have abilities like maybe when they flip or when they attack or something like that. But this leader has, when it's on the table and it's flipped, it has such an impact on the board state in a way that no other leader can. They can fully exhaust every single unit you have in one single action, right? Nobody else can do that. They can do it the same turn that they flipped. And if you're not prepared for that, and you haven't like really thought about how this deck works, how it functions, and how it works and functions against the deck that you're playing, it's going to be a big problem for you. And I think that is part of what we saw in Milan. Not necessarily that this deck is unbeatable, but that if you show up and you don't have a plan for this deck, it changes the way you play the game so much that you're not going to be able to figure out on the spot very well.
Yeah, I think also one of the things that just shows the sheer power level of the deck, and like it might actually be to the advantage of why it did so well, is that there was like a lot of different versions of it, right? Like there's the 1-drop versions, there's the 2-drop versions, they don't play a lot of 1-drops. There's the 2-drop versions that play a couple 1-drops, like maybe they play ISB Agent and Greedo, but they don't play any of the other ones. Some people play Greedo in the sideboard, so then like, you know, what do you expect when you sit across from it can vary like round to round. Like you see Jango sitting across from you, but there could be like 15 card difference in the way that deck is built. Like, you know, the top end is the same. You know, there's going to be sneak attacks, triple dark raids, ruthless raiders, devastators, war juggernauts, IG 2000, but like and P38, right? But outside of that, like the openings change. And one of the things that Phil had mentioned about what he likes about this game, right, is like being able to prepare for like that opening sequence and being able to master that, how my deck interacts with a certain matchup in the very beginning of the terms, and using that advantage to kind of snowball into a victory. That's kind of hard to do in the very beginning of a new meta when like the deck lists aren't kind of consolidated into one thing, but the sheer power level of this leader with certain cards is so out there that you can kind of just do whatever you want in the beginning turns of this deck and still have success, right? Like you can play two 1-drops, or you can play just like a general pride and you could still have success. And that, I think that thing, or that part of it kind of shows just like how powerful the core of this deck is.
Do you have any other thoughts, Philip, on like why we saw so many of these Jangos rise to the top in Milan?
Honestly, I really don't know. I've tested a lot against Jango, and all I can say is it's a good deck. It's a really good deck. It's not that good. In my opinion, and this might be a hot take, Boba Green was better.
So Boba Green in set 2
yeah,
was more like backbreaking for people to deal with?
Yes.
Less counterable?
I think so.
Philip,
That might be wrong. Maybe it's nostalgia, but yeah, I really think so. At least from my own experience, yeah.
I mean, you had success, man. So
yeah.
I mean, no one can doubt you on that. So
and you know, I mean, Austin was the one who convinced me to play Boba Green back in set 2, and I was trying really hard. I was trying everything to beat it, and in the end, I did as you said. You know, if you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah.
We need to put together a Jango versus Boba Green, build a set 4 Boba Green.
Yeah. Years down the line, we'll have like the best of the best format, where it's just the crazy decks that got crazy placements and crazy win percentages. We might have them duke it out.
We might get that format soon. You know, first rotation, we'll have a format where Boba's legal again, all Bobas.
Oh man, yeah, that'll be crazy.
Do you guys see any standouts from Milan? Did you notice anything? I mean, it's hard to in the sea of Jango. I played against somebody on the Bothans Discord, Malvolio, and he was the guy that made it with Piet Yellow in the top 8. Just someone I met a week prior, and he just managed just to get there. We played some games, Palpatine games. That was really exciting to see that. What did you guys notice?
Yeah, I was going to say Piet Yellow in top 8. That was what I noticed.
Wait, so was he on Palp a week ago?
remember our last podcast? I mentioned that we were talking about community engagement. I think it was the last podcast, and I said,
I think you're right.
Yeah, I said, I met this guy playing online digital platform, and he recognized me, and I said, hey, let's go play in Discord. Let's go jump in voice and play some more games. And so we did, and he was telling me he was trying to play Palpatine or Han was his choice. And I said, okay, well, let's play some matches. I'll play Han because I'm practicing Han. You play Palpatine. And he couldn't win. And I said, well, here's my set 3 Palpatine deck, and I built it to beat Han. It's not updated for set 4, but just play it and let's play a match. And he beat me. And I was like, oh, there you go. These are some of the ways you can beat Han with Palpatine. And some other people joined the voice chat while we were playing. So I had to go. And then he played with somebody that was really excited about BIATL and shared some of his ideas with Malvolio. And Malvolio took those ideas and just ran with them, jammed a ton of games, and put that deck together and got top 8 in Milan.
That is absolutely crazy. What a snowball effect.
I was so excited.
Yeah, shout out to Malvolio. I mean, that deck looked really fun. It is crazy, though, that we can say it was a top 8 that was all TDR decks.
Right.
I guess that's the only downside. So, maybe if there is something that gets banned, maybe they'll be like, well, all the top 8 was TDR. So I guess that's the card we need to ban, not Jango Leader. I do want to give a shout out to our teammate, Alex, who you might see him on Discord as Defay, who got 26th with Anakin Blue. That was a deck that he played a lot of last set, and he was the highest finishing Anakin, so he got his Anakin showcase. It looks great. Super proud of him. I mean, in that sea of Jango, he just barely missed top 8. I mean, I think he was 1 win away, or maybe 1.5 wins away, depending on when he got his final loss. So, yeah, I mean, a great performance, just shy of cracking through that Jango top X whatever millions of them.
Yeah. Anything jump out for you, Philip, or is this saying the Piet deck?
Yeah, I think only really. I mean, it's just a sea of Jango, right? But Piet Yellow, I really didn't expect. It's something I thought about, and we actually sort of discarded it. We couldn't make it work. So to see someone else being able to make it work, I think, well, that impresses me.
Yeah. I mean, it is a hell of a drug to flip Piet, then on 6 resources, triple Dark Raid, and get a 10-drop Devastator out.
Yep, right.
Kill something, attack for 10.
You saw he was playing Bib too, right? So you Bib.
Was he? Oh, I didn't even notice that.
So you have Piet deployed. You use Bib to play TDR, and you're getting you're getting a 5 discount on your capital ship.
That is absolutely crazy.
It is crazy. So another thing that did come up in the Milan top 8 was some discussion around angle shooting. One of the players was in a situation where their opponent failed to announce the Jango trigger. Jango was on the battlefield, on the table. A War Juggernaut was played, did damage to all this player's units, but didn't announce the exhaust trigger. The game went a couple more actions, and then the opponent finally realized, hey, your units aren't exhausted. What's going on? Judge was called. Judge agreed that the Jango player had established a precedent of using a certain pattern to announce his exhaust triggers, and he hadn't done it on that turn. So then they continued the game without exhausting the units. Whether that situation is right or not, I think as a player you find yourself in a situation where you have to make a decision on your opponent just missed something that they really did mean to do. How have you guys handled that kind of situation in the past? A little bit of another hot take, but what kind of stories do you guys have where you've had to deal with this?
Yeah, I mean, I can go first, and then I'll let Phil go. So my background all comes from Magic, and there's been multiple times where this has happened to me and against me. Magic's a little different because of priority. So oftentimes, there could be something where an effect happens at the end of a main phase, and when you say like, okay, let's go to combat, and then you attack with a unit in Magic, like you might have missed the window to trigger something if you didn't announce it right away. And your opponent isn't supposed to tell you, hey, your guy has an effect on the field, like you should trigger that. Obviously, it's not beneficial to the opponent to remind you of that stuff. I think the difference when it becomes angle shooting is if there's something that the other player does, like there's an action that the opponent does to try to make you miss a trigger. Like maybe they distract you in some way, or like that's like not even a part of the game, so that you forget about a trigger. Or maybe like they slow play you during the resolution of something, so that like 5 minutes goes by, and by the time they finally like resolve what happens, you're now forget that there was an additional thing you were supposed to do. Like that type of stuff is what angle shooting really is, and it's not technically against the rules, but I think everybody knows that like if you're intending to do this to help to try to persuade your opponent, essentially like you're doing a Jedi mind trick, right? Like you're Jedi mind tricking your opponent into missing a trigger. That's when it gets from the level of like acceptable within the rules. You don't have to play the card game for your opponent. That is never what anybody asks of their opponent is for them to play the cards from your hand for you, or to make you force the optimal lines. But when you actively do something to obstruct the trigger from your opponent from happening or make them try to forget about it, that's when it crosses a line for me. And I think that might have happened here. I was not at Milan, and I don't like doing like these hate brigades because especially when I'm not there and I don't know the full story. From what I have heard, there wasn't a lot of window that was given to the player who played the War Juggernaut, in terms of like the War Juggernaut got played. He said ping everything. Didn't say exhaust everything. He had said that previously. He said previously it said ping and exhaust everything. And then his opponent very quickly plays a War Juggernaut of his own, then realizes he doesn't have enough resources for it, and then quickly plays a P38 to try to progress the game so that the missed exhaust doesn't happen before new information is given to the opponent, so you can't rewind the game state. And that is what ended up happening, is that the judge ruled that the game has progressed, there is new information that has been given, and there was a pattern of this player saying ping and exhaust. He only said ping this time, so we can't rewind and let you exhaust.
Jonah was their judge, and we know he does a great job. So, in that situation, I'm sure Jonah looked at it and made the right call according to the game rules. I believe that for sure.
And then it's just a matter of like, was there a correct investigation done on whether or not this person like intently played the P38 faster so that new information was given so that they can't rewind the game state. Because
I know he
knew his opponent missed the trigger, right?
Yeah, I've been in games where my opponent claims on their leader flip turn, and I'm like, are you okay? All right, I'm going to finish my turn and we'll move on. And then we like draw cards and they realize, oh my God, what did I just do? Well, that's too bad. I completely knew what was happening. I knew what you just missed, but I'm sorry. We're moving on. Philip, I know you have a story from BIATL. You shared a little bit of it with us before the recording.
Yeah, so first let me say that I have a background from when I was very much younger. I played the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. And part of the reason why I stopped playing that game is because I felt that these angle shooting things were sort of a little bit too common. It's like everyone did it, and the most common thing that would happen is that someone would play a card, and then their opponent goes to check their trap cards to see if they will respond, and then relatively fast afterwards you'll play another card and then claim you missed trigger, like you missed the window to respond. And this got so common, and it was actually part of the reason why I stopped playing that game. It's that this kept happening, that and I really didn't like it, and I didn't like how the community acted like it was all okay, like it was just an acceptable part of the game. I've heard that it might not be like that anymore, like that maybe they have changed some things, but that was my experience when I played it back then.
In Magic, I'm used to like telling people, okay, that resolves. There wasn't any culture like that?
No, at least not back then. That was not my experience. Now, oh yeah, so I was gonna say, I actually haven't watched the video, so I don't know whether, he gave his opponent ample time before playing the next card, because, I mean, I wasn't there, I didn't see it. It's also hard if you're just playing not in a top cut match where maybe a judge is watching all your time, but if just like, you and your buddy is playing, or you and your opponent is playing, and then at some point, you feel like your opponent just immediately slams a card, you call a judge. I mean, it's your word against his, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you put the judge in a really tough position when there's no video evidence. How's the judge supposed to know whether, ambled, like whether you gave him enough time to really say, exhaust everything? Like, what if he just said, this is just purely hypothetical, I know nothing of what happened in Milan, but what if he just played War Juggernaut, said put 1 damage to everything, and then he was thinking about whether he wanted to put a damage on his own War Juggernaut before he...
Yeah, and that's a common thing that Jango players might tank on. Like, that's actually something that's, like, very clear. They are still resolving the triggers that could... And you don't have to announce the Jango exhaust until you do all of the damage.
Exactly.
Right.
So.
The story that you are alluding... So... I did have a story about an optional trigger, which happened in my top 16 match against Jango Tarkentown. So my opponent has Ruthless Raider, I think Patrol Fighter, Genesis Patrol Fighter, and P-38. And I play Commandeer to take his Ruthless Raider, which already has some damage on it, and I crash it into his Patrol Fighter, dealing 2 to his base and 2 to his P-38, and then the action goes back to him, and he doesn't... I was expecting him to ping with the P-38, and I'm noticing it, but I'm not... It's a May. So I'm not required to point it out, so I don't say anything, but he's like, I'll claim the initiative, and I wait another, 5-10 seconds before I take my action, just to make sure I actually gave him ample time to ping if that's what he wanted to do.
Right.
Even though he had said claim, if he had said, oh wait, I want to ping, then I mean, of course I would have allowed it. But if he doesn't say anything, it is just too bad. It is an optional trigger. I am not required to tell to remind my opponent. But like, I have never, like, if they had Jango out and played War Juggernaut and said, well, I mean, I would just assume everything takes a damage and I tap everything. Like, I don't think I even did it. Like,
I did comment.
I think I already just started tapping.
Yeah.
And especially in some of these matches when there's like time consideration and time pressure, and that can typically happen in Top Cut because, well, there is still maybe a 75-minute timer, but you also want to make sure you take your time, you think through your process. And so if you also have to be, very clear in your articulation, then you can play as fast, and sort of that's another aspect that drags the game out.
I do want to point out, I think that your interaction with the optional trigger there is like exactly what I expect to be happening at high level play, right? Like, you give your opponent the requisite amount of time that they need to make sure that they fully resolve everything that they have. And if they forget something within that time frame, and then they are the ones that are progressing to the next action, and they claim the initiative, and then still after another 10 seconds don't do anything, like, at that point, it's just not on their mind. They forgot about it. You move on to the next action phase, or if you have actions left, you go through your actions. It's not like you purposely like played a card right before he could try to resolve the P-38 trigger to make him so that he, couldn't get the P-38 trigger. Because
no, so first of all, that wasn't relevant in this scenario because the action went back to him. But also, I would never do that. Yeah, like, I try to make an emphasis on always giving my opponent ample time for triggers. And I might even ask, and I did this several times over the weekend, am I good to go?
I think that's a really good habit that players should do, is if you are unsure whether or not it's your action yet, just clarify.
Yeah.
You don't have to say, do you want to exhaust my units?
Right.
Just say, like, can I proceed? Or
Right.
can I play a card? Like, can I do my action?
Yeah.
Ready?
You're not,
Yeah.
because are you ready? Like, you're not saying, like, hey, you forgot something here, right? Like, you're not pointing it out and playing the card for them. You are just making sure that they are okay with you progressing the game state. Because I think if that had happened there, the opponent would have been like, well, you forgot to tap your guys, right?
Yeah.
Like that's 100% what's going to happen every single time. And it was a top cut at the largest, event, 550 people. You're in the top 8 of that. There's these crazy promos on the line. It's a high stress situation, so I understand. Like,
Yep.
that people don't always do the most logical thing, because your brain under stress works differently than when it's not under stress. But at the end of the day, I think we all want the community to be one that is not known for angle shooting and not one that is okay with angle shooting. So I think really the reason that we wanted to even bring this up in the first place is to just help competitive players know that these things might happen, and here are ways that you can avoid these things happening, right? And don't be the bad guy, right? Like, don't ever put yourself in a situation where you could be looked at as someone who's an angle shooter or whatever, right? Like, give your opponents ample amount of time, ask if they're ready for you to move on, do those type of things, and then, be the SWU player that you want to play against.
And protect yourself.
That's really the end of the day.
Let people know.
Protect yourself.
I'm not ready. Hold on. I didn't see that. Or like whatever. Like, wait a minute. I'm still resolving. I'm still thinking about damage on my War Juggernaut or whatever it is. Don't let people move too fast. Let's talk about BIATL. It was our tournament. We put so much work into this, let me tell you. And when I say we, I mostly mean Courtney.
Yeah, shout out to Courtney. Holy cow.
Courtney and Frank put a ton of work into making BIATL happen. I mean, I feel like I contributed a lot, but there's just no comparison. Those guys put in a ton of work. Filip, as our guest, how did you feel about BIATL?
Well, I mean, maybe I'm a little biased, but for me, it was an amazing event. Yeah, but honestly, I think it was a really, really well-run event. I think it was a nice store. It was a nice venue we were at. Everything ran more or less smoothly. I mean, we got a little delayed, but I mean, that always happens because some games are always going to go to time. But I think overall, like, it was just pretty smooth sailing in my experience.
Yeah, I think if anything, we were just over ambitious with the amount of rounds of SWU that we could fit into each day.
Yeah.
I was exhausted every night, waking up to start the next day at 8 a.m. every night. Boy, was that exhausting. Oh. I had maybe 5 hours of sleep every night. I got home today and I took a nap. I got off my plane, I got home, and I had to take a nap.
Yeah, same.
I have to agree with that. Very tired every day. The end of each day, I was like, my head was just dropping. My eyes were closing. I was ready. It was the first time we did 3v3. 3v3. How'd you guys feel about that?
I mean, it was easily my favorite thing that we've done for SWU. Like, it was my favorite tournament. I had a great time. My team was a respectable 3-2. We were in the top 4. Bothans White was in the top 4 of the winners bracket. And then we lost to Phil's team, and then we lost to Idea Squad in the losers bracket in back-to-back rounds. So we started off hot 3-0, and then we kind of hit our stride, but ended up losing twice in a row. Really great games. The 3v3 format was just so cool. You got to see so many decks and see each team's strategy of like how they wanted to navigate it. It was so unique, and like immediately after the event, we were like, okay, what would we do next time? Like, how would we change our strategy? How would we expect to attack the meta So yeah, it was just such an awesome event. And everybody was such good sports. Every team was courteous and having fun. The banter was great. Like it was awesome.
My story is quick, so I'll go next. My team, I had great players. I myself only went 1-2. We won our first match and then we lost twice. We lost to Idea Squad, same guys that you lost to. I can't remember our other loss right now, to be honest. It was a sad moment, but it was still fun. Like just the experience of sitting with your buddies and like winning your game and telling your team, "Hey, I won my first game. I won game 1," and letting them know it's good. And then winning your match, being the first to win your match, and then letting your team know, "Hey, we got one. We got one." That experience was great. But Philip, you went really far in the 3v3. What was your experience like?
Well, I mean, I went really far, so probably my experience was also pretty good. I think on a personal note, was a little bit unhappy. I felt like my teammates, Zach and Tyler, shout out to them, they are amazing. I feel like they sort of just carried me on their shoulder. I only won one game that mattered. It was in round 2. That was the only time where I played a game that ended up mattering, or that would have mattered.
Is that because the other two would win faster?
Yeah, because
than you would finish
they're
the other
just
game,
too
either
fast.
I would lose or they would win faster than me. Like in round 1, I was gonna win that match, but they won faster than me. So in round 2, well, we actually went to time, so it was a little bit unfortunate. We had to play sudden death. I'm not too happy with. I mean, I wish we would have had time to complete a full game, but ultimately I did take it down in sudden death, and my opponent, I don't think there was any hard feelings. And then in the next couple of rounds, well, when I played your team, Ian, well, I lost my match, but they both won.
Yeah, but even when I beat you, it was after they had won, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, that's true. But like, when we played Secret, Sunny's team, I also lost my match, even though we put me first. Well, they put Sunny first. Like we lost the die roll, and they put Sunny first. And we put me against Sunny, and yet, so I'm supposed to win, right? And then I lost, but they're like, "Don't worry, we got you. We won for you." So, so I really felt like I felt like they just more or less carried me all the way to the final. That was my feeling for the event, and then.
So you guys won the winners bracket,
Yes.
which is awesome. Which then made it so that whoever won the losers bracket was going to have to beat your team twice.
Yes.
That team ended up being the KTOD team. So shout out to Woo, Tata, and Alex. They played amazing all day. They had a gauntlet to go through. What was that finals like? Because it was across 2 different days. Because we didn't have enough time before Pool 1 started to do both of them. What was that like, and what was your guys' strategy for that crazy finals?
So I thought a little bit about how to phrase this, and I'm just gonna be unfiltered and honest, okay?
We love it. We love it.
I think we lost the first final because I messed up. It was my fault, and it was my responsibility. Zach and Tyler all said afterwards, it's no one's fault, And we also said that before when we made the strategy. We said we all agree with the strategy. We all said yes. We're like, we win together, we lose together. But what we did in the first game is that we won the die roll, and we put me first. And when we did that, I was pretty sure that we were gonna play all mirrors. Like, I was pretty sure that K2D was gonna put Alex against me, and then they're gonna put down Jango and Cat, with Jango in the initiative seed, and we're gonna put down the Jango mirror and the Cat mirror. And the thought process behind that was that Zach should win the Cat mirror since he's Cat green and Ophia played Cat red. Alex and I play a mirror, and Tyler and Tada plays a mirror. So, we have 2 coin flips. Well, so 75% of the time we should win one of them. So, that should give us 75% chance of, winning the event. I feel like that's a pretty good draft. Stepping away from it, like analyzing it, getting home, getting back to the hotel, thinking about what happened. Again, this is part of being honest. I felt outplayed by Alex. I think he has more experience in the mirror, and I think he sort of just outplayed me in 2 games, and I felt really shitty after it because I felt like I felt like it wasn't 50-50, like he has so many more reps in the mirror, like he just knew what he was doing better than I did. Like, I think I was in a good spot, and then one turn was so complicated, I didn't know what to do. I went for one option. I don't think it was the right option, but I can't change it now, so.
I mean, I appreciate you being hard on yourself, and I think we've all been in situations where we've felt that way before. I don't think that's like a strange thing to feel. That is one of the reasons, that mirror is one of the reasons that I stopped playing the Hanyo deck.
That absolutely. Yeah, I remember that.
It's not even just because like of random people that like the amount of Han Yellow that was played last set. It was more so that the good players that are playing Han Yellow, when you get into the mirror situation, like one action is the death knell, and if you screw it up, like it snowballs like crazy. It's really hard to come back from, and you feel like it was just so obvious what you could have done differently, and you feel terrible about it, and it wasn't fun for me. So like I totally get it. I've played the mirror against Alex twice in the same tournament. I played him at SCG Atlanta back in set 3, and I beat him in Swiss in 3 games, and then he beat me in the finals of SCG of the 2K at SCG Atlanta in 3 games. So I ended up 3-3 against him in games, but I lost the event. Like he won the event. I came in second, right? Which is a very similar situation that you have that you find yourself in. Yeah. I mean, and shout out to Alex. Like he is a master of that deck. I mean, Phil, I think you're a master of that deck too. So I think you should give yourself a little bit more credit. You've been playing this deck all of the last set, and still playing it now, even when people don't think it's a great. Doesn't have a great matchup in a Jango, and you've been proving people wrong on that point already. So I think that you can solidly put yourself in the master category for it as well.
Yeah, I agree. I've had people tell me that no one's harder on me than myself. Like I've had other people tell me that to me personally, and I think you don't see what others see, and they don't see what you see, right? Like, everything that was going on in your mind, all the things you were considering. When they're watching that match, they can't think of all the things you're thinking of. They don't have that same presence of mind that you have, and all these lines you're considering. And when they watch you play, it just looks incredible. They can't believe that you got out of this situation. Someone used the term snowball earlier in the podcast, and it made me think about all of your matches that I've watched this last weekend, Philip, where you got to the point where it absolutely felt like a snowball. You had a stack of 3-5s that you were turning 90 degrees and hitting your opponent for 15 or 12 or whatever it was. And it did not happen on that turn. It led up to that like a snowball, and you masterfully crafted your way to those board states game after game, and I watched you do it.
Yeah. So just to return to the 3-3 final, so we get another shot, right? And I think here fatigue really started to play a role. So K2D decided not to play pool 1. They had to come from the losers bracket. They were tired. They were like, we can't play more games. We all decided to play pool 1. We all decided also to wake up early the following day in order to play pool 1 once again, like the remaining of pool 1.
Second part of pool 1.
Yes. And Tyler and Zach did not make it out of pool 1, so they wanted to play in pool 2 as well. They have played a full, and they didn't make it in pool 2 either, but they were both close, so they had to play the full 10 rounds. So when we went into that grand final, well, loser final, or whatever you want to call it, the last match we were going to play in that tournament for sure, they were exhausted. And they both told me that they think they threw away a winning game. Then they felt terrible. And so maybe I should just say, so we went with a different strategy, right? We reflected on what went wrong. So I took the Jango matchup. Well, they won the die roll and they seeded Jango first. And I decided to take the Jango matchup. And we got the cat green versus Han yellow, Jango versus the cat matchup, which was exactly what we expected. So like the strategy worked exactly like how we wanted it to work. And you know, I was able to win my match, which I felt a lot of pressure on, but unfortunately both Tyler and Zach lost their match. They say they both. I mean, I haven't gone back and watched the games. But I mean, I trust them. They say they both punted the game because they were tired, they were exhausted, they didn't play their best Star Wars. Maybe it wouldn't have mattered anyway, but they were a little disappointed that they didn't play their best. But you know, you're a team. You win together, you lose together, and they carried me all through the bracket, all the way to the final. So you know, I feel like I threw away the final. So you know, at the end, we all felt like we lost it all for our team, and yet, I mean, we hugged it out. You know, no one else. We only felt that to ourselves. You know, no one else on the team felt like that player lost the team. No, I mean, only the individual player felt they themselves lost the team. And this not to take anything away from K2D. They played great. They played phenomenal. Like, hats off to them. Like Alex, Ophia, Tada, they are all great players. There's no shame in losing to K2D.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I have been in your situation before, and like I've played team events in Magic where I felt like, wow, if only I had played better. Maybe like I one time played a team event where I thought I like broke the format with this crazy deck. No one was gonna expect it, and then I went 0-5, and even though my teammates were carrying me for a couple rounds, when you go 0-5, that's putting a lot of pressure on your teammates to always win. And unless they each go 5-0 every time, your losses are going to stack up. So it can be really demoralizing. But at the end of the day, that's why you choose your best friends or your teammates like to play with you, because they'll never look at it that way, right? Like you'll never look at Tyler or Zach and be like, why couldn't you have played better?
No, never.
You're never doing that, right?
No,
they're your best
friends. They are
friends.
exceptional
they're
players. Yeah, and they're exceptional players, and they always got my back. I mean, I would never, even if they did punt the games, you know,
exactly.
never. Like,
yeah, you're riding into battle with your homies, and that's what matters the most. Like you said, you win together, you lose together, and that's why the team events are so much fun for me at least, because it's like sometimes I get my teammates carry me on the back, and you know that's hell yeah, that's sweet. That's fun. I love it.
So immediately following the 3v3, we had a 6K.
Yep.
If you haven't seen, Filip won the 6K. So
he sure did.
What was that like? What was like? Can you walk us through like your pull experience, your top cut experience? You don't have to go into a lot of details, but like, you know, did you see a lot of Jangos? What was it like that journey for you?
Okay, so maybe I should just clarify that while we played the team final, everyone else played round 1 of pool 1. So we actually had a bye in round 1. So I get in round 2, and my first match is against Jango Tarkentown, and I lose 2-0 very quickly. Wow. I think he's called Symbiote. He made top cut. He's a great player. He's in the K2D Discord. He's very active in the community. Great guy. I think he played great. Maybe I was a little tired. I just think he played great, and he drew great, and he beat me. Fair and square. No excuses. So now I was like, okay, well, if I lose one more round, I just get to go home early. So at least there's that. So I played the next round, and I queue up against Bosk Blue, and I'm like, oh, this is free. This is pretty close to 100% win rate. So I'm like, well, sorry, dude, I got you. So I beat him, and I played the last match for the day, I believe, right?
Yeah, it was 4 rounds.
Yeah, 4 rounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I played a Jango Town, and at this point, the fatigue is certainly starting to sit in because I almost punt the last game. Like I have a line that wins 100% of the time, and I take a different line that doesn't win 100% of the time, but then I top deck a card and I win anyway. So at that point, I was
Let's go.
never punished. Rather be lucky than good. That's what happened in that scenario. So I didn't play great.
After like 11 rounds of smooth.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised that happens, man.
I mean, maybe I played okay up to that point, but like then I just made a fatal error where like I almost threw it all away. It's like I only lose to exactly Sneak Devastator, but like I could just have played around Sneak Devastator. So, and he had Sneak Devastator, but fortunately I just drew Cantina Bouncer off the top, and I was like, okay, bounce the Devastator. But like, yeah, so
that's awesome.
Felt a little shaken, but I was like, it's a long day, and I got the win. I got lucky. Let's just forget about it and focus on tomorrow. So we come back for the day after, and somewhat expectedly, a lot of people have dropped. And so the pair rounds make us sit down, and I sit towards a Quinlan Tarkentown, which is one of the worst matchups that I can have. I think, in my opinion, that's one of the worst matchups for Han Yellow. It's certainly one of the matchups I struggle with the most. But then they repair, and I think once they repair, I think I end up with Sonny. So he plays Han Green. So I already played him in the team tournament. I kind of figured that his deck was maybe a little bit different from the team tournament one, and indeed that was the case. But nonetheless, I lose the first game, and then I able to take it back and win the next two to take the match.
And you had lost to him in the team event, right?
And I had lost to him in the team event, yes. So it felt good to get my revenge.
Yeah. Also, I'm glad to hear you say that Quinlan Tarkentown's one of your hardest matchups, because I practiced Monohan leading up to the 3v3 event, because that was my deck for the team, and I was crushing everything but Quinlan. Like I was winning, but it felt more 50-50 than the other matchups. So good to hear even you agree that is not as easy of a matchup as some of the others.
Yeah.
I've always felt that matchup was 50-50. It can be really tough, especially if they draw multiple force throws.
Damn, if you can do 50, I'm all ears, man. You know something I don't.
Well, I speak more from last set.
Okay,
so they got a lot more tools this set that make it a lot harder. I agree.
Yeah. Then in round 6, I play Jango Tarkentown, and then at this point I'm X1. Refreshing, I'm checking, can I draw into top card? We get paired, I get the down pair, so definitely not, okay? So my opponent wants to play 100%, I think we play on stream. I don't remember exactly how it goes, but we end up 1-1 and we go into the third game. We have enough time to finish a game, but we don't have a lot of time. And but I'm starting to pick up the pace and play a lot faster to make sure we have ample time to finish the game. And I make a very crucial mistake. And I was really upset at me because I felt like I just threw away the entire my entire tournament right there. And some other people say, oh yeah, they were watching, and when they saw me make that mistake, I mean, they just left. They assumed I'd lost. Somehow I managed. I honestly cannot tell you how. Somehow I managed to win that game.
I know exactly what happened if you want to know.
Well, yeah, enlighten me.
Okay, so the mistake that you made was that you activated Han on the 3 resource turn against Jango post board. most of the Jangos are going to bring in Cham,
Yes.
which can ramp you and is a 5/4. And your opponent was our teammate, Hunter, who has 3 of them in his board. He drew one of them with a sneak attack.
Yep.
So he sneak attack Chams in response to you activating, which is a really huge tempo swing into the Jango favor, because the Cham gets to kill any of your 3/5s. You get to ramp. You get to flip Jango a turn earlier. He does that.
And this is something that has happened to me before. Like, I know about the card, I know about Sneak Champ. Like, it's just in the moment I was playing a little bit fast. It's like I want to play the tech, so I had the tech in my hand, but I don't have DJ yet. So what you usually want to do is you want to put the tech down first and then smuggle it in order to increase your chance of seeing a DJ. But, that was definitely a mistake. I should have played around the Sneak Champ. It's just bad. I just played the DJ, the tech, and I'm in so much better space. I don't need the DJ. Like, he's going to be afraid of the tech anyway. Sorry,
and
go
I
ahead.
Think instead of playing the tech, you play Ahsoka. Is that correct?
Probably, maybe. To be honest, I don't recall what happened.
Yeah.
The only thing I recall
is
that I keep thinking that he can also flip Jango this turn, which he can't because he's only went to 4. But what usually happens, I think it only happened to me once before, and then I never made the mistake before, is that, for some reason I rammed on the 4 resource turn, and then they play Cham, and then they flip their leader right away, and you're just in a horrible spot, and you want to concede the game and scoop it up right there.
Yep. Never do that again.
So,
Nope.
I think what ended up happening was you played an Ahsoka. He only has 2 cards left in his hand. He discards, some unit. So you get to tap his Cham, which is great for you. Like, that's best scenario in that case.
Yeah.
And then, but he still ramps, which is bad, right? So then you go to the next turn. It's your 4 resource turn. It's his flip turn. I think that he draws 2 cards, plays a card down. It's his 5 resource turn. I think he plays something like a unit or something like that, and then he flips Jango. And you cunning tap the Jango and make him discard his last card.
Oh, yes.
His last card in hand was Ruthless Raider.
Yes.
Which was obviously very good card to hit with cunning.
Yes.
And then he proceeds to draw into sneak attack, or maybe it was a triple dark raid.
No, I think at some point he draws double swoop down. That's something like that.
Yeah, he drew. I think he draws poorly for 1 turn. The game progresses to the point where you get an Enfys Nest out, and then he War Juggernauts. You blaster the Enfys. You can't bounce the War Juggernaut because Enfys has 7 power and the War Juggernaut has 7 power.
Again, I was playing a little bit too fast, and I sort of miscounted.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, you looked at it and you said, "Oh, I can't do that," so you bounced something else.
Yeah.
But you get to push 7 to base, which is still really good against Tarkin Town. And then he decides to attack your base instead of killing the Enfys with the War Juggernaut. And I think that was the crucial turn, because if he does kill the Enfys, the following turn he draws like a TDR and can kind of try to finish you with a Devastator that way, and instead you just have too much damage on his base and you kill him in the next turn or something like that, and the Enfys just kind of ran away with the game from there on. So you were able to still get there. Yeah. It was a really awesome game. You should definitely go check it out, the VOD.
Well, hold on a second. If you do, that was my teammate, so I'm extremely biased in the commentary. I wanted him to win.
That's okay. Yeah, understandable.
Well, yeah, you were both playing for a winning in, right? So it was high stress situation.
Well, it's not clear whether he was winning in, right? Because he was I was getting down paired, so he would only have been 5-1-1, and I don't think all the 5-1-1 ended up making it.
Gotcha.
So that
makes sense.
So, but for me, it was definitely a winning in.
Right.
Yeah, I think
you ended up winning.
I think we saw your body language on stream as well when you played the Cham. If I remember correctly, you were like, "Oh no," we could see it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I knew it as soon as it has happened with the Cham that I just messed up terrible, and then it just you feel like you threw everything away. So yeah, well, and so onto Top Cut. So I have a nice long break before we play the last final of the team tournament. I go back to the hotel. I shower, I have a nap, I do all those sort of things, and I come back ready and relaxed the next day. And I lead out by playing at Jango Town. I think we play all 3 close games. This is the match where
I think that the third game is the game where he misses the optional
Yes.
P38 trigger.
To be fair, I don't think that would have impacted the game. Like, after I play that commandeer, like, he has no board, he doesn't really have enough damage on my base. I think I should get the game almost every time from that point onwards. As long as I don't brig and he doesn't draw like Devastator, Sneak Devastator, then I should be okay.
Yep. That was my buddy Tyler, who came down with my teammate Cluis from the Philadelphia, New Jersey area. I was super proud of him. That he doesn't really play a lot of SWU, so him getting into the top 16 was just really awesome to see. And my top 16 match was going on while you guys were going, and we finished a little bit before you guys, so I got to watch the end of that match. It was super well played by both of you guys. And then what did you face in the round after that? Because I think you hit another quote-unquote bad matchup, right?
Yeah, so after that, I played the Cat Green, and which is my teammate Brandon. Well, we know each other. We actually played Han Yellow against Cat Green last set at the Hex PQ. So we're like, oh, welcome back. And they did change the deck quite a bit in order to make it better into Jango. They had to make concessions into Han. At this point in time, we were still thinking that Cat Green should be favored. It's just ambush us the deck. It's what Han traditionally struggles with. It's the same reason why Han was struggling into Boba 30. It's just all these stupid ambushers that keeps killing your guys, and he plays the Syndicate lackeys, so you cannot flip Han on an empty board on 5, because even if he hasn't rammed, he can just kill it with an ambush and a Syndicate lackey. So I feel like I'm probably not gonna win, but I just gotta play my best. And game 1, I mean, first of all, I play phenomenal, if I should say so myself, but also I draw so well. 2 times I go to attack with Sorry Bliss, and I draw a card that make it so I can exactly play my entire hand and doesn't have to discard anything.
The dream.
And awesome. The card was just like the best possible card in that situation. Like, it was absolutely insane. He also draws well, but what ends up happening is that my hand just aligns really well into what his hand happens to be, and I keep sparking him, Kiraing him, bodying him, so I keep seeing his hand, so every turn I can just make the best play because I have so much information. In game 2, it's a very different deck, but I think at some point the draws just aren't with him and the draws are with me, and so I just end up sort of winning with a traditional tempo plan, and the same way you might beat like a Cat Town if you're playing Han Yellow. So, and then facing Jango 30 in the semifinal.
Yep. Yeah, this is our teammate Co Dameron or Colby.
Yep.
His deck was definitely built, so it's Jango 30, there's no Tarkin Town. His deck was built for the mirror. Just having that 5 HP threshold can be really crucial. But in my opinion, it does kind of make you a little bit weaker to decks like Han, because you don't have Tarkin Town, which is one of the best answers you have as Jango into the Bozo combo, Tech DJ, and just 3/5s in general. A lot of times Kira names a crucial card in your hand, and you have like a Crafty Smuggler out that you can hit into the Kira and then Tarkin Town and get your card back.
He did have Force Choke though, so I mean he did have some
That's right.
Some way to deal with Tech DJ. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm just gonna hard mull for Tech DJ and try and bozo him every time. Like, that plan was probably not going to work. I had to be a little bit more thoughtful about how I played. But I do think you're right that being 30 health just makes you worse into this matchup. And well, with all due respect, I also saw him in game 1 make some sort of critical errors that I am then in game 2. I was sort of hoping he would repeat those errors. He does repeat that error, and I sort of just end up in a really good situation from that point.
Do you want to shed some light on?
Yeah, so in my opinion,
you don't have to.
No, I don't think it's a big secret. In my opinion, so this is a little bit of a next level mind games thing, but in my opinion,
I mean, competitive players love that, so please.
Yes.
Go ahead.
If you play Jango Town against Han Yellow, and you open a hand where your only turn 1 play is a space unit, you should mulligan.
Okay. And that's because Han Yellow can play Falcon.
That's because Han Yellow can play Falcon on turn 1, and I think Han Yellow already sort of start having an advantage right now. Like, I think if it was 50-50 before anything happens, it's at least 55 in Han Yellow's favor after this sequence happens.
And Colby wasn't even on Tarkin Town.
And he didn't even have Tarkin Town. And yet, in the first game, he didn't take a mulligan, and he leads with a space unit. I don't have the Falcon. I kept a hand without Falcon. So, I mean, we played out whatever happens. But in the next hand, I do have a Falcon. And it is a situation where it's a little bit hard for me to decide which cards to put down, and I could be tempted to put down the Falcon. Except I saw him make this, what I consider an error and a mistake in the first game, so I'm like, no, I have to keep the Falcon in case he repeats this mistake. And he does repeat this mistake, and I do play the Falcon. My other play would have been a Bodhi, which I think would actually have whiffed completely. So, I mean, I mean, the Falcon ends up being like a much better play.
Yeah, wow. That's really cool that you were able to like see that a player have a tendency to want to start in one of the arenas and use that to your advantage in that second game.
Right.
That's some really high level play, Phil. That's awesome.
Yeah, even
though it was against my teammate, which I cannot forgive you for.
It sounds like even in game 1, you recognize that that he started in space and how dangerous that is, and you just were like, well, I don't have a Falcon, but what if I did? And then next game you did have a Falcon.
And he specifically didn't mulligan, which means that he's likely okay with that.
Right. Well, if they mulligan into it, I wouldn't put any, like, if that's your only play, that's your only play. I mean, that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes, right? But if you keep, you made a conscious decision.
It's super heads up, man.
To analyze the keeps differently from the mulligans too.
Yeah. And then I played the final against George. I don't think I need to say so much. Like, before the match, my buddy pulls me aside and he's like, okay, this is a free win. This is what you do. You are just going to beat him 100% of the time. You got lucky. Like, this is the freest matchup ever. I've never played against George's Cat Blue before. I've played, like, last set against other Cat Blue lists that were maybe a little bit more event heavy. I thought he didn't have that many events, so I couldn't maybe go for the exact same strategy as I would go into like a Bosk Blue deck. But I still think no matter what, hand just has to be greatly favored. Like that's what I think.
Yeah. So just to give the listeners a little bit of feedback on this, George had originally made this CAD Colossus deck under the impression that Han or DJ was getting banned at the beginning of this format.
Yeah, that is true.
So his thought process was Han or DJ's getting banned. Jango's gonna Jango's gonna run the tables, and I'm just gonna build an anti-Jango deck with some cards that he really likes. Like he really liked Relentless Pursuit because it deals with pilots really well. He really likes like he plays one of Dryden Voss, which can then play the unit after he Relentless Pursuits onto the CAD. CAD getting a shield, CAD leader getting a shield really good against Tarkentown decks and Jango decks that ping. His deck was 100% built to beat Jango, and kind of just sacrifices the Han matchup. I mean, he had since once we found out that nothing was getting done by Han or DJ, he had built the deck to try to have as much game into that without sacrificing other matchups. But it is an uphill battle, and we had talked because I was also in the semifinals. I played against George. The winner of us was going to play Phil, and we had talked about how we kind of knew in my matchup against him that he was heavily favored, so it was almost like we could just kind of figure out who was going to win the tournament at that point.
Yeah,
because it was just like such an uphill battle for me, and then he had such an uphill battle for you. But that's just the way, like you said, the way the cookie crumbles. It's matchup roulette.
Yeah.
You don't get to choose the bracket. You don't get to choose your matchups, and it doesn't take anything away from your win, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you played phenomenally across 3 days. You were definitely the MVP of the weekend. Really love that you were able to come on and talk to us about it. I think a lot of the competitive players that are watching this really appreciate the insight. I guess with final closing remarks on the weekend and Han, is there anything that you would like to talk to the folks at home who are watching about the meta, Jango, Han, or maybe something completely different?
I mean, so I know that the community has been, like, multiple people have kept telling me that that they cannot win with Han versus Jango. Even people who I respect a lot. Like, I think there's like maybe 4 or 5 great Han Yellow players that I know, and many of them has just said, I cannot beat Jango consistently. And this event I ran throughout the whole event, maybe I went like 9-2 against Jango, which is like an amazing record. I don't think Han Yellow is a 9-2 advantage against, like, it's not a 5-1 advantage when you're playing Han Yellow against Jango. The matchup is not amazing. Okay, I had a lot of luck. I had a lot of good fortune. I think a lot of people were like, I'm just gonna win the matchup. They were maybe a little underprepared for the matchup. But I also want to say that I think it's not that bad. So I have it labeled as even. I think it's a 50-50. So maybe that's just what I wanted to say about that and that matchup.
Yep.
That is at least my opinion as of today. It can of course change, right? But that's what I think.
So do you think that going forward, even with Han being a 50-50 into Jango, do you think Jango is still the top dog? I mean, I know that is what the percentage would say at events like Milan. It wasn't nearly that bad at BIATL. I mean, the top 16, there was 6 Jangos, I think. So, it was not even 50% of the top 16. It was 4 of the top 8. So there was 50% of the top 8, and then there was 2 in the top 4, but neither of them made the finals. Jango didn't win the 6K, and then the following day we had a 2K event, which was won by Phenom, who was playing CAD Blue 30 HP. So, seeing CAD Blue doing really well as like an anti-Jango deck, Han maybe not being as unfavored as people might have thought. Do you think Jango is still the top dog?
I mean, Jango is definitely the deck to beat, just because if 25% of people are going to play Jango, I mean, that is the deck to beat. My strategy, but if you also play Jango, you're also going to be even into all the other Jangos. But a lot of the decks that quote unquote beat Jango, like Piet Blue or Cat Blue, they really fold to Han Yellow. So that is something you should keep in mind. But then, I mean, also a lot of people played Quinlan. I think it was Quinlan Tarkentown. I think 12% at Milan brought Quinlan Tarkentown. And in my experience, it's a really tough matchup. Um, it's not like I think Han Yellow is just a slam dunk. Of course, you should play that. But I definitely think Jango is still the deck to beat. I mean, unless people stop playing it.
Do you think next weekend we have Denver and Lille happening? I think it's the same weekend. Do you think that both of those events will have similar numbers of Jango? Do you think it'll increase because of what happened at Milan, or do you think it'll decrease because of what happened at BIATL?
I think people don't, in this game, from some earlier tournaments, people don't adapt that fast. So I think,
gotcha.
Like the people who thought last week that they were gonna play Jango, they're still gonna think just gonna say I don't have time to learn Han Yellow or Cat Green or Cat Blue. I'm just gonna stick with Jango because that's what I expected. I think that's what we'll see.
I think what these folks do have time to do is figure out the Jango matchup a little better. Try to work on that learning curve of understanding how the deck actually works, understanding your tools against it, what the play patterns are like how we've talked about opening lines, like really digging into that. If you probably will have to stay committed to the deck that you've put all this time into, but you can still study the menace, that thing that you need to take down and learn how to play into it.
So if you were going to Denver, would you be playing Han Yellow again, Phil?
Yeah, I don't have time to play another deck. I don't have time to learn another deck.
Exactly.
So I will say this: in our team, we had one spare Cat Green deck that no one brought, no one ended up playing. But Austin's plan was if he lost in pool 1 and felt disheartened, he'll play the Cat Green deck. And I was sort of thinking, if I lost and Austin wasn't gonna play the Cat Green deck, maybe I wanted to play the Cat Green deck.
But you ended up both making pool 1.
Yeah,
top
so
8.
none of us played this hard, so we brought that deck box with us back home untouched. But we had it just in case.
Yeah, just throw it in the trash. You don't need it. I love it. Yeah, no, I mean, it's always good to be prepared for that. I will be at Denver next weekend. I'm excited for it. After coming off in top 4, I got my awesome BIATL number 4 playmat. Oh wait,
it's being filtered out. Yeah, there it is.
You can see it says number 4 on the bottom. Super excited for how I did. Lost to a teammate in top 4, so you can't ever complain about that.
Yeah.
I'm most likely gonna run it back with Jango, but who knows? Maybe I will switch it up completely.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up today. Next week, we've got the Denver recap. Late Night Gaming is going to have coverage of Denver. They're, what's the other, C something? C Raptor?
C Raptor.
C Raptor. Yeah. He's going to have another table at Denver, so there's going to be multiple tables streaming coverage for those that aren't going. I know Late Night has exclusive for the top 8. I think I'll be helping cast some of Denver, not all of it. I think my wife would kill me if I tried to do another 2-day event that soon. And then after Denver, we'll try to get someone, maybe someone that top 8'd or the winner or somebody to come join us. It's probably going to be Ian, so we're just going to have to get someone else to come join us. And then, who knows after Denver. There's still a lot for us to dig into. We can dig into Jango some more. We can dig into some of those matchups some more and get into some actual deck lists. But Filip,
I will say this: there is a very precarious April 9th stream called the Star Wars Unlimited Competitive Play Check-In. So who knows what happens on April 9th? If we have some similar results with Jango, he might not be long for this world.
Which is just after Denver and Liverpool coming up this weekend. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Filip, thank you so much for joining us. This was great.
Thank you for having me.
When we say across the network, we mean everybody that we network with. We don't mean the Bothans. We mean everybody. And as our first out of team guest, For me, this has been an amazing experience having you on the show and getting to talk to you and hearing your thoughts. I think people are going to love it, and I look forward to having more people join us that aren't Bothans. This was a great experience. I really loved it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Really appreciate it, man. Always great talking to you.
You're welcome.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.
See you later.
Many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Ian, you want to tell the story of how you got your name, and I'll tack it on to the end of the podcast?
Sure. Okay. So many people ask this question: What is Lego pizza? The answer to this is that there is a PC game from like 1999 called Lego Island. I think it has a sequel called Lego Island 2 as well. And this Lego game is the story of Pepperoni, the Lego pizza delivery boy. I loved that game as a kid. And for some reason, during the pandemic, when the Among Us craze was going on, all of my friends were like joining the lobby with goofy names. And some people were like role playing like their favorite character while playing Among Us or whatever, right? And for some reason, I thought it would be really funny to role play as Pepperoni, and I joined the Discord or the Among Us lobby as Lego Pizza. I don't know why I didn't just put it as Pepperoni. I just put it as Lego Pizza. I thought it was funny at the time. And then I played the Among Us game where, in that Lego Island game, the enemy was called, like, the Brickster, who's basically just, like, the Hamburglar, but a Lego version of the Hamburglar. And I just kept calling people the Brickster, and I would just run away from people and be like, I gotta go deliver pizzas. And my friends thought it was really funny, and I thought it would be a funny name to use on Discord, and it's been Lego Pizza ever since.
What about Numbers Guy?
Oh, yes. That's a good story. So it goes back to when I first made my account for League of Legends. And I wasn't very old at the time, and I didn't know English that well. And it asked me, I thought it asked me for my nickname, okay? But whatever I entered, it kept saying, this is taken, this is taken, this is taken. So in the end, I just entered a bunch of random numbers. And, well, that was not taken. And so later on, when I started playing with other people, people didn't want to call me by, a string of random numbers. So instead they called me by Number Guy. And then when I eventually made my second account in that game, I just called it Number Guy. And that nickname has sort of stuck with me ever since.
That's
pretty
awesome.
funny.
I love that.
I studied mathematics in university, and I was like, did Philip study math? Maybe, I don't know. Number Guy. That's
well, funny story. He did. He's actually getting his PhD in mathematics right now. We are taking him away from his dissertation defense that he has.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, I fell in love with like discrete math. What's your area?
Topology and geometry.
Topology. Ooh, awesome.